Spring break in Fort Lauderdale used to be where the boys are, and now it's where the crowds went. Some that may have been in Miami Beach, but for that messaging and the methods, they made clear they were not wanted. Fort Lauderdale took a different approach, welcoming spring breakers. And we start there with Fort Lauderdale Mayor Dean Trantalis live with us on the Zoom. I know you're not in the city today, and I really do appreciate that you are taking time of your Sunday Easter for us. Welcome, Mayor.
Thank you, Glenna.
So let's start there. Fort Lauderdale police made 18, what they're calling 18 spring break related arrests, which is more than twice the number of last year. Do you think that was an anomaly? Do you think that was the reaction of another city down the road's breakup? Or I don't want to put words in your mouth. What happened?
Well, first of all, we had a tremendous spring break season. We're just about wrapping it up this week, and everyone had a great experience. We had a lot of fun times. The college kids came down from all over the country, and we really had a pretty sedate, relatively speaking, spring break. The numbers I don't think are really going to tell you the truth about what happened here in Fort Lauderdale. Kids came from all over the country. And they came to a safe environment, a fun environment, and they left with a good experience. And hopefully they'll come back when they graduate and decide Fort Lauderdale is their new home.
Well, that's an interesting take, and I know you are so right. Throwing out arrest numbers out of context, it's something that, it's a statistic that news uses, but it, to your point, really doesn't paint a picture. And yet, the arrests were up. And that has something, there's a reason for that. And you are welcoming spring breakers. We covered some issues, there were no, murders or anything like that, but there were some issues. And I really want to get a sense of what you think was different this year.
Well, first of all, kids are going to be kids. They're going to get out of hand. They're going to be a little unruly, trying to act up. I mean, they were not serious offenses. They were just disorderly conduct and things like that. There were no gun arrests. There were no murders. There was no, we did not have a tense environment that other cities have often experienced. And so the message went out to the parents: bring your kids here, send your kids here. And by the way, it wasn't just a kid event. We saw lots of families come to Fort Lauderdale during the same period of time, and everyone had a great time. So I think that when people are starting to make comparisons between Fort Lauderdale and, say, for example, Miami Beach, I think we have different experiences. And I think that in the end, we'll all come out in the same place, which is a positive experience when people visit our cities. But our police took a really great approach to this. They took a kinder, gentler approach. They weren't there to knock kids over the head with billy clubs. They were there to diffuse situations, to help kids out, to make it a friendly environment. In fact, we even did recruiting. We had over almost 100 applications during the spring break period of young kids who signed up to perhaps be police officers when they graduate from college.
Was that a decided effort, or was that coincidence? Did you have a recruitment rally at spring break?
We had a tent set up on the beach, and we were very proactive in getting kids to sign up. We had some of our police officers were out there, challenging some of the kids to calisthenics and seeing if they were fit. And you could be surprised a lot of those guys were happy to show themselves off. So, we did a very proactive. It wasn't just random. We were very proactive in trying to see how many kids we could get to come back to Fort Lauderdale and be part of our police department.
So to your point, I don't want to make comparisons between Miami Beach's spring break and Fort Lauderdale's spring break, because that is, to your point, apples and oranges. But we did talk to some people, some kids on the beach who specifically, on Fort Lauderdale Beach, that specifically said they were there, purposefully chose not to go to Miami Beach because of that messaging. And over the years, spring break has changed in many ways. Largely social media and the proliferation of weapons on the street is really what damaged spring break in the bigger picture. And so I wonder if you or your police department has an eye toward the future if everything went swimmingly this year. I mean, is that something that you are planning for?
It was definitely an effort by everybody: Parks and Recreation, the police department, all of our city staff. We really did our best to try to make the spring break experience a positive experience for everybody. The thing is, it's a tale of two cities. There's Miami Beach, there's Fort Lauderdale. We're very different cities, and we attract a very different kind of crowd. Keep in mind that a lot of the people that went to the so-called spring break in Miami Beach weren't college kids. A lot of them were adults and people who come to party to Miami Beach, regardless of whether it's spring break or not. And that was an issue that they have to deal with. And fortunately, Fort Lauderdale did not have to deal with that this year. And traditionally, it's not really an adult scene. It's mostly college kids coming, and that's traditionally what we anticipate and how we try to address it.
And there was, not to belabor the point, but I know in the past couple of years there has been a real development boom on that strip. And I remember someone talking about how purposefully changing the face of a little more upscale, a little more tourist oriented, probably started to turn the tide of year-round kids coming to Fort Lauderdale. Would that be fair?
I think that's a fair statement. Let's face it, back in the early 80s, Fort Lauderdale suffered through its own success. We found hundreds of thousands of kids coming to Fort Lauderdale. You could get a hotel room for $200 a week, and you pile 10 kids in there. It's a totally different scene. And the people that ran the city at that time decided they had enough. And yes, it did. The policies over the years have been to create a more upscale experience here on the beach. And to their credit, it has become very successful. We have a lot of great branded hotels on the beach. The experience is much more upscale, but it doesn't exclude families who really can also afford the mid-range price hotel. We have all of that for everybody. So it really encourages people from all walks of life to come to our city. Everyone under the sun is our byline, and we're very happy to embrace the diversity of the cultures that come to our city.
The chief cheerleader for Fort Lauderdale. All right, I want to a subject switch really quickly. I mean, we're going to take a break in about a minute and we'll come back and talk more about this, but I just want to bring up last time you were with us here, I think it was a couple months ago, probably like December. We were talking all about...
Too long. I was like, it's too long.
You're welcome anytime here, you know that. So we were talking about bridge versus tunnel over or through the new river for commuter rail. And you have always been team tunnel, and you were fighting an uphill battle. And I know a couple of things have transpired this month that may change the tide, not the least of which was you went to visit Miami's port tunnel. And you took some
Yes.
county people with you. Was that, we'll talk a little bit about that, but give me the headline. Was that a game changer?
I think it helped for everyone to understand a little bit better about the benefits and the consequences of each approach as we were trying to work with this effort to bring commuter rail through the city of Fort Lauderdale. So I'll be happy to explain in further detail what happened then and talk about what the real future is for our community in South Florida when it comes to trying to implement commuter rail here in South Florida.
I mean, that is a huge question and a huge infrastructure undertaking about to happen. And I know so many people are watching this. All right, so let's take a couple of minutes break and let's come back and break down the numbers and the depths of the possible commuter rail tunnel through the new river versus what we have in Miami right now, or the bridge idea. I know this is something that there's a lot of details. All right, quick break and we will be right back. We are back with Fort Lauderdale Mayor Dean Trantalis. We are about to get into bridge versus tunnel. Mayor, this question about a commuter rail tunnel or bridge through or under the new river, this is something that I know you've been working on for a while. Lately, the tide seems to be turning. You've got new information that might support the tunnel through the river that a lot of your colleagues and a lot of leaders in Broward and Fort Lauderdale might not think is feasible because of the cost or the time. So your trip to Miami's port tunnel, which is in some cases, a very different kind of tunnel that would go through the new river, what did you learn about what is possible?
So let's just step back for just a second and talk about what is the purpose of even having this conversation. So a while back, there's been discussion about bringing commuter rail through South Florida because of the amount of traffic congestion that we see on I-95 and a lot of the other north-south arteries that service the roads, service the communities that we live in today. So commuter rail, we have the tracks there. Right now, we have Brightline, we have the freight lines, and of course we have Amtrak. The idea is to add many more trains to the system, as many as anywhere between 60 and maybe 80 more trains per day on those existing east tracks in order to accommodate a commuter rail system. Why? Not just to alleviate the traffic concerns, but also to anticipate the growth that will happen in South Florida and to be able to accommodate that growth so that those that do move here will be able to locate along the track and be able to not use cars, but instead use commuter rail to get either to work or to wherever they need to go. That's the theory. So moving forward, Miami-Dade started this project several years ago, and Broward County decided, hey, why don't we also participate in this and bring it through Broward County and, of course, through Palm Beach County. So in the discussions talking about this, we realized that in order to promote economic development, the track that would be used would be the eastern side of the city, so the west track and the east track. So economic development is a very interesting theory. It's not just traffic mitigation, but like I said, economic development. So bringing the train through Fort Lauderdale would require going over the New River. Now, the New River is not just a simple river cutting through the middle of the city. If you go up the river, there's a multi-billion-dollar industry that exists up there. The marine industry is probably one of the most important industries that we have here in South Florida.
So
in fact, throughout the entire state.
I don't want to interrupt you, but let's just stipulate that you have a huge marine industry. You have hundreds of thousands of new residents and high rises around the New River. It is bustling. So I want to stipulate to that because I really want to get to the real costs of train tunnel versus bridge.
So, okay.
Yeah.
So I needed to put it in context so people understand why we're even having this discussion.
Yeah.
So trying to protect the marine industry has said, look, if you're going to build a bridge over the New River, it's got to be a very high bridge, because if it's a low bridge, it's still going to frustrate all the marine industry activity that takes place upriver, and we can't have that. So the idea of having a tall bridge would require almost a 2-mile long bridge that would be built right through the center in the heart of Fort Lauderdale. What would that do? How would that impact us? It would impact us significantly because we already have economic development occurring, and to build a bridge right through the middle of it, 2 miles long, would be absolutely devastating. So the county and the city went out and started researching what the cost of a bridge would be, and we also decided to talk about a tunnel. Why? Because if we can build a tunnel underneath the city, it would completely eliminate all the horror that we would have to suffer if we built a 2-mile bridge through the city.
Right, and I think we're there. The reasons have been laid out properly. What I really, in the few minutes that we have together, I want to, I covered the construction of the Miami Port Bridge. It was twin tunnels, $643 million is the cost over the course of 30 years. It's $1.1 billion. Is that, did you find comparison costs in the plans for what might be a tunnel under the New River?
So the Miami tunnel cost about $650 million. It was about 10 years ago that it was built. But the tunnels, the twin tunnels there are twice the size of the ones we're trying to build here. They're about 44 feet. We're looking to build half the size, about 24 feet. Also, they went 120 feet down into the ground. We're not looking to go anywhere that deep. It's probably more like 50 to 60 feet down. So the dynamic and the actual engineering would be completely different, much smaller scale. Given that, so the FDOT and the MPO's consultants came back with a cost anywhere between $3 and $4 billion. We realized how unrealistic that was. Fast forward, we hired consultants, BDO, a major international consulting firm, and they came back now with a price of $888 million all in for a 1.1 mile tunnel that would go underneath the train tracks, excuse me, underneath the river, and allow the train tracks to pass through the city without having to be done through a bridge concept. We
And
brought this, we brought the,
with these new numbers and with this fresh look, have you gotten anyone who was opposed to it, any of the people who really were eyeing the bridge in the county especially, have you gotten any indication that they may be taking another look at the tunnel?
I think the visit to Miami was very helpful. I think it was a turning point. Commissioner Lamar Fisher, who represents the Fort Lauderdale area, also with the Deputy County Administrator, Kevin Kelleher, came to the visit and heard the presentation made by the folks in Miami. The people in Miami said that the tunnel is doable, can be done much cheaper than with the projections, and that I think was a very helpful opportunity for the county to hear firsthand from an independent third party what we have been saying all along.
So what's the next step?
So the next step is to confer with the county administrator and to continue the conversation with the county board of county commissioners, as well as with our city commission, and to keep this conversation going. So we have applied for a federal grant and have received it. The county applied for a federal grant and has received it to further study the impact of bridge versus tunnel in this area. The MPO received a $1.5 million grant. The city of Fort Lauderdale received just under $1 million. We'll both get to the same place because it will help us all understand the economic impact, the social impact, as well as the connecting communities goal, which the Biden administration is hoping to achieve through transportation infrastructure projects such as this.
Wow, that's a lot of consultant money. So that's
but this is not easy. This is not easy.
No, of course.
It took 30 years for Miami to get where they did. I'm hoping to do it in 3. So we got a lot of studying to do very quickly because we want to see commuter rail happen in South Florida, but we just need to do it the right way. And I think we're on that path.
And we are watching that. This is a really interesting question and what could be a monumental project. So Mayor Dean Trantalis, thank you so much, and please do keep in touch.
Thank you.